Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. I gotta sit there and say, for the most part, I generally enjoyed this episode. There was a couple of hiccups, right? There was a couple of hiccups, and I'll just talk really quickly about the hiccups, and then we'll get into um, the different scenes. One of the hiccups that I noticed was when Christina was talking to Natalia, right? They're having this heated conversation, and the background music starts playing. But then, like, the background music gets louder than them talking. And I don't know if you got to go back. Like, there's a middle point where they're talking or whatever, and things are getting a little kind of heated or whatever. And it's like the background music is just playing louder than what they're, and you can actually hear them. And I just thought it was just so funny. It was just like, man, this seems like a really intense conversation. And now I can't really hear it. But then the other hiccup was the scene with Gio and Jocelyn. Now, don't get me wrong, I generally actually did like this scene, but there's a point where after Joss is talking to Nelly about Jason, um, James is about to sit there and jump in the pool, and Gio stops him from, like splashing and maybe hurting himself or whatever. And Jocelyn gives Gio this kind of stink eye look like, what are you doing? And it was so weird because when they started talking, everything was super friendly. And I thought that she was going to sit there and Raymond Mouse of something. But instead, she just gets numb and talking and everything like that, and everything is pleasant. So I was kind of just like, was that just a bad take that they just left in there? I don't, was the scene supposed to be different? And it cannot just be me that looked at that was like, why is she giving him the Ugg mug, but then have a very cordial and casual conversation? I didn't get that. Now, I've said for many years, not just me, other reviewers, that, GH is a bloated cast, right? I still believe that. But I will sit there and say I did like how they introduced Gio. You really got a good sense of him, um, his upbringing, music and everything, how passionate he is about music. Um, even him living at the Quartermains and being like, yeah, I know it's a little kind of crazy and hectic, but I like that sense of it makes me feel like back home where it's like everything's kind of loud and but everyone's like kind of connected, right? Now there's a point um, when Trina comes in and Trina sees Gia, and she is a very perplexing look because you can tell there's an instant attraction, but also it's like he reminded her of Spencer, right? So while they're talking, for the most part, she's kind of quiet. She does start opening up. She even invites him to work at the gallery, doing like music and stuff. But then afterwards, after they, exchange numbers and stuff, and he goes and he does his thing, she starts talking about her sadness of missing Spencer. And I'm like, on one hand, I get it. Grief is not a grief has no timetable, right? You can grieve for 6 months, you can grieve for 6 years, you can grieve for 16 years. There is no exact timetable. But with that being said, like I feel like I'm just repeating myself at this point. She never actually did any grief counseling, right? So while it's realistic to sit there and look at that and be like, okay, she's gonna be a little kind of sad until she starts to get back uphill and, maybe fall in love with you or whatever and yada, yada, yada. I feel like this process could have probably started to move a little faster if she would have actually took Curtis' advice and actually did see a grief counselor. So this way we wouldn't have to see all these kind of mopey scenes a little bit, because I do like the fun Trina, the outgoing Trina. Um, but it is what it is. So we're gonna have to just sit there and ride through this process, I guess. Um, okay, let's talk about Christina and Natalia, right? Because there's a point where Blaze actually does a really good job with the song, and Natalia's like, "Hey, listen, this is perfect. This is good." And she's like, "No, I want to sit there and do it again one more take." And we'll all just kind of look at it. I was like, "No, no, no, no. It's good the first time. You don't need to redo it. It's fine." And Christina comes in there, and Christina's like, "Well, as the artist, shouldn't she sit there and decide on which way that she wants, on if she wants to do another take or whatever, right?" So after a while, you know, flat out, Christina is just like, "You don't want me here, and you're." She said it without saying it. Is that you're very rude? And Natalia's like, "Well, I'm not rude. I'm just honest. I don't like to sit there and hide my feelings, and I like to know everyone's stance." And I'm like, "Yeah, we get that. This is something that I agree to. You can be honest, but you can have tact, right? A little tact goes a long way. You don't have to lie to the person, but you don't have to be a straight up asshole about it." Um, and so, I completely agreed with Christina on that. It's like you're doing too much. But then bottom line, she's like, why don't you just do Blaze a favor? Because she's gonna have to pick. She's gonna have to really, pick you or her career. So just let her go. And long story short, Christina's just like, listen, whether we work or not work, that's gonna be our choice. Like, and so they have this heated conversation or whatever. Um, Natalia tries to hide. See, for everything that she's meant to say, well, she likes to be honest and stuff like that. She has a very snaky way of talking to people. She's like, well, you're a very lovely woman and you're doing a very selfless thing, and it's like, oh, see, that would just make me more pissed off. You already don't like me, and you have the audacity to sit there and try to give me compliments. Like, I don't need compliments from you. I already know I'm awesome. I don't need you to sit there and validate my awesomeness. Like, I know who I am. And then, afterwards, Christina and Blaze have a conversation, and Christina apologizes for her overreacting. Um, also Smith is saying she doesn't want to be like her dad, which I think is kind of a stretch. She did overreact, if we're going to be honest. Yeah, she could have been pissed off or whatever, but storming out without actually talking about something, hmm, okay, maybe it's kind of a mix. I take that back to some extent. Because you can talk, and then sometimes you can sit there and say the wrong thing that you can't take back, and sometimes it's better to sit there and just, um, kind of distance yourself from that person. Actually, no, I take that back. She didn't. She didn't really overreact. Yeah, no, she didn't overreact. I'm not gonna redo this video again. I just now actually thought about that. I was like, no, she didn't overreact. She handled it fine. She was honest about her feelings. She decided to walk away before she said something that she couldn't take back, and you know, hey, listen, you called me a bunch of times, but I wasn't ready to talk. She was ready to cool down. So I thought that she actually handled it fine. But anyway, it seemed like they kind of worked it out. So that's cool. Now, Chase sees Finn drinking, and there's a point where Georgie comes in. It's like, oh, I found them or whatever. Um, Maxie comes in. They invite Fowler to the pool, but she doesn't want to go. She's like, hey, listen, I want to make sure that you're good. Um, but Finn insists on, taking her to the pool or whatever. There's a point where Maxie's like, hey, listen, if you need me to help you go through your dad's clothes or whatever, I can do it. She brings up her own experience. Brooklyn comes in, it's like, I can help you with Violet or whatever. Finn starts to get a little kind of defensive. Maxie at that point is like, listen, you do it the way you want to do it. Um, because there was a point that she probably got defensive as well, so she understands that. And was just like, listen, you handle it the way you want to handle it. But Violet did eventually go. Um, Ben wanted to go home, and Chase was like, how about you just stay? How about we just kind of hang out? I mean, you don't have to like work tomorrow or whatever, right? But eventually, he does wind up leaving, and Chase is. I couldn't tell at one point. I couldn't tell, was he disappointed with Finn, or was he just mad at himself? And reality, I think it's maybe a little bit of both. But it sucks for Chase though, because he's trying to look out for his brother, but he's also grieving himself. And bottom line, Brooklyn's like, if he wants to drink, there may be nothing we can do. Sometimes you can't always help that person. They have to hit rock bottom before they're ready to sit there and get help. Um, Now there is a point where Finn is there going through his dad's stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, that scene was a little kind of hard to watch. Um, but then he was calling up for a meeting, and I guess maybe the church or whatever wasn't doing it anymore for the meeting he wanted to go to. So he winds up going to a bar, and you see in the previews that yeah, he is heading towards rock bottom. Meanwhile, Maxie is having a conversation with Violet. Violet's worried about her dad. Doesn't even too sure she actually wants to do the sleepover. And Maxie tries to explain. Sometimes adults like to have some alone time or whatever. Um, and just kind of listening to her vent while Georgie and James is they're trying to get Maxie into the pool. Um, yeah, that's pretty much about it. That scene wasn't really worth talking about, but I just figured I should just say something about it. Anyway, that's pretty much about it. I can't think of anything else that wound up happening. There might have been one or two things that I might have forgot, but I think that's the general gist of the episode. But as I always sit there and say, if I forget anything, come to the live stream tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I will be talking about all the shows, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, Bold and Beautiful, and Young and the Restless. And with that being said, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video.